All right, here we go with questions 5, 6, 7, and 8. Now, I have actually rewritten 5 because the way that it was written, there was nothing for you to do, and it was completely wrong and incorrect. If you checked it, it would have not worked out. So I've changed the center part here. The original price, so we do have the original, which I'll write down. $200. Okay, during a sale, the price was reduced by an unknown percentage. So the change in percentage, we don't know. All right, then during a clearance sale, the price was reduced to a final sale price of $88. All right, what was the percent reduction? Okay, so this should be quite obviously a percent change. And so we will use our percent change equation, which is final minus original over the original equals the percent over 100, the change in the percentage. All right, so once we have the change in percentage, we should then be able to solve for that. We're going to say that this is x, so I am defining x as the change in the percentage. So I'm going to go 88 minus 200 over 200 equals the change in percentage, which I defined as x, over 100. Now 88 minus 200 is 112. And so from here, I should be able to cross multiply. That'll be 11200 equals 200x. And so once I divide both sides by 200, I should end up getting that 56 equals x. And so therefore it was a 56% reduction, which should make sense. If you look at this, if you were to get 50% off, it would be $100. So it's got to be a little more than 50%. So a 56% reduction. All right, great. Let's go on to number 6. Stop Mart received a delivery of 1,080 bottles of Coke and Diet Coke. So that tells me that I have a total of 1080 bottles. Or in other words, Coke plus Diet Coke equals 1080, right? Okay, now I'm going to say that C is Coke bottles, just so I remember later what those represent, and D is Diet Coke bottles. Okay, so I'm writing down the information I have. If the ratio of Coke delivered to Diet Coke delivered was 6/3, how many bottles of Diet Coke were delivered? So 6/3 we should be able to write as a ratio right away, Coke to Diet Coke. All right, now the question is asking how many bottles of Diet Coke. So that needs to be the variable that we're focusing on, is the D, so Diet Coke. So since I'm setting up a proportion here, the Diet Coke will be D. And then the Coke, I don't want to put in a C, because if I put in a C, I've got two variables and I won't be able to solve it. So what I'm going to do is, you'll notice up here, I already said that C plus D equals 1080. I can get C by subtracting D, which means it would be 1080 minus D. Now you don't actually have to do that step, because you should recognize that if there's 1080 total bottles and D of them are Diet Coke, then if you subtract those two, you should end up with the number of Coke bottles that you have. All right, so from here you should be able to cross multiply, and I'm going to leave a little bit to your imagination here, because you should be able to solve these at this point. And so I'm just going to say, okay, we cross multiply, we get 60 equals 3240 minus 3D. We add the 3D to both sides, so we got 90 equals 3240. We both divide both sides by 9, and we get Diet Coke equals 360. So 360 of them are Diet Coke, and therefore you should have a 6:3 ratio, so 720 would be Coke, and then we're done. Let's go ahead and look at number 7. Juan received a 6% raise. Okay, so there's a percent. That should clue you off. If he was making $6.50 before, how much is he making now? All right, well, that means his original pay was 650. We have a change in the percentage, which is 6%. And then it's asking how much is he making now, so that is his final amount, which is going to be X, so final pay. All right, so there you go. You have all the data that you need, and this should key you off that this is the equation that we're looking for. Change in percentage over 100. And so we go ahead and we plug it in. So X minus 650 over 650 equals 6 over 100. And you should then be able to solve from that point. So we'll get 39, which is 6 times 650, equals 100 times X minus 650. Notice I did define my variable right there. So then I'll have 39 equals 100X minus 650. I add 650 to both sides. I get 689 equals 100X, and divide both sides by 100. So 689 equals his new pay. The units are dollars. Please note, sorry, I forgot to do it on this one, but in all the problems I've done so far, I've shown the units. So there we go, dollars is that one. Let's go on to Billy Bob. So the following table shows Billy Bob's algebra grades during the first semester. Calculate his term average if concept checks are 10%, quizzes are 35, and tests are 55. Very well, let us do it. So in order to do this, you need to know what your overall concept check score is. And so that one, I'm sorry, I may or may not be able to do in my head. So I'm going to go ahead and do it on the calculator. So I'm going to go 80 plus 75. Oops. 75 plus 79 plus 60 plus 72, and then I'm going to divide by 5 because all of the concept checks should be averaged or weighted the same. So that gives me a 73.2. So this is the grade average. Okay, then we'll do the same thing for our quizzes. So 65 plus 72 plus 59, so 196, oops, which I then need to divide by 3 because there were 3 quizzes, so 65.3, repeating, and then 65 and 54 will average together to give me a 59.5. All right, so from there we should be able to answer the question, because now we know that concept checks are 10%, quizzes are 35%, and tests are 55%. So this is obviously a weighted average. You can set this up in one of two ways. You can either go 73.2 times 10 plus 65.33333 times 35 and plus 59.5 times 55, and then you have to divide by the total weight. Remember, this is a weighted average. You're not dividing by the number of terms, but you're weighting by their total average, which if you add those numbers together, you'll get 100. And so since you divided by the total weight, your answer should be the final grade. Okay, now the other way that you could have set this up is you could have gone 73.2 times 0.1, because 0.10 is 10%, plus 65.3333 times 0.35, and then plus 59.5 times 0.55. And if you would have done that, you still have to divide by the total weight, but 0.1 plus 0.35 plus 0.55 all add up to 1. And again, since you divided by the total weight, it should give you the final grade or final average. Okay, So I will go ahead and do that. I'm going to do this one right here. So I'm going to go 73.2 times 0.1 plus, actually I'm just going to take the answer from right there. So 65.33333 times 0.35, and then plus 59.5 times 0.55. And then if I divide that by 1, obviously it's not going to change, so my final average is 62.9. Now I'm doing that because this is for the term. I am going to need this later on the next page. All right, so there you go. That goes through 5 through 8, and go to the next video if you want some.